Greetings, everyone. Welcome back. We are into chapter 6 already, if you can believe this. We are talking about marketing strategy. Even though we started this topic last week, we are going full force into gathering information, and all of that data and insight will help us absolutely build a stronger, more vibrant, and more effective marketing plan for this organization. So welcome back. We're talking about market strategy. We're going to use the things from last week in market research in chapter 5, but we will also use everything from chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 when we talked about, again, how organizations in our industry look at marketing, where the history of marketing has come and how we've been slightly lagging behind and using it from this 21st century kind of perspective. We've moved through the idea of an experience in our industry and what a powerful tool that is, and something we should not take lightly, the experience we deliver for our consumers and our employees and our stakeholders, that we want to really capture the magnitude and special nature of what we do in our hospitality, leisure, recreation, tourism, food service, event industry. Chapter 3 talked about the quality of the experience, and you can answer this question, but what is the base of all great marketing? The quality of the experience. You got it. And don't forget that. So operationally, we need to deliver high quality, because that's going to be the foundation for everything we do in marketing. And the better we are as at delivering high quality, exceptional experiences, the way easier our job in marketing is. And I don't mean easy as I'm looking for the easy way out. I'm looking for an effective way to convey a message. And the way to convey that message that it has meaning is if it's believable and the experience they're going to get is exactly what I'm presenting. So quality is the base. And if you are working with an organization right now even that has quality concerns based on the assessments that you looked at last week, then your marketing plan should absolutely have a great deal of insight and recommendations to this organization about enhancing and improving their quality, because it's going to cause problems for us throughout the process. And I don't care how many millions of dollars of billboards I buy, if the word on the street and the experience people get is of poor quality, my $1 million won't do anything. So can't stress that enough. And I'll continue to stress it, though, just to make sure you're getting that point in this plan. Chapter 4, we looked at how to build and what a marketing plan is and what makes a better plan than not, and how our industry really is across the board in terms of how they've approached writing marketing plans. One of the few real marketing plans that I have as a sample is from the Holland Visitors Bureau. And one of the things, if you happen to look at that plan, you'll see they actually conducted some and used market research in part of their recommendations and decisions. It wasn't an extensive part of their plan. However, they used it, and that was neat to see. There's only one other plan on there of real organizations that are doing what we're talking about in chapters 5 and 6, and that's utilizing data to drive our decisions. And that data really comes from 3 different sources or points: the data we gather, very specifically or specialized primary research, and the data that we access that other people do, whether it's internal to our organization and a part of doing business, or it's data gathered from a variety of sources, as outlined last week, that we're going to pick from. So transitioning from where we've gone so far to where we are today is we're going to use all that base to actually formally develop the strategy section of this marketing plan. Now, you gathered 3 pieces of data last week: the quality assessment, the competitive assessment, and the social assessment. So you did your own primary research that will start this process as we move into conducting the other assessments this week, so we can keep building a more effective plan. So recognize that in this section of marketing planning, our industry is typically not formally conducting this type of information. Again, at least some insight. This was actually from one data source that Holland was using, but I'm just so thrilled they were using it, to be honest. They're showing that they're looking outside of their world into this bigger world that has great impact and influence on us. And if you don't see that and buy into that this week, then I haven't done my job. So you let me know if you're not seeing how this insight is incredibly valuable as we move forward. So Having said that, your assessments look very good. Your content, from what I've evaluated so far, is what I'm hoping you'll start to look at and gain this insight that I believe the organization probably already doesn't have. So, what you're already learning about the organization and a competitor is more insightful than maybe the organization has been operating already. So, thank you for doing a great job in starting the process and capturing it. Your tables or the outline you used are good, but I want to share with you a little snippet tool that's available both on PCs and Macs. I'm going to show you the PC version, but it allows you to capture a screenshot of something in a very more professional looking manner, because I found that most of your tables included words only. So we want to remember the power of visual nature of not only the visual nature of your generation, even more so than any other. The younger the generations, the more visual they are, but that less words is more powerful if we can tell the story in other ways. So when you looked at marketing plans, I know because you told me that the visual, I call it visual relief, but the idea of utilizing visuals, photos, tables, figures to help tell the story becomes incredibly important. So in the first assessments you did, I tended to see very little visual relief, lots of words. So don't hesitate capturing things like the TripAdvisor review. Instead of telling what it says, show us the review, because that just told us what it said. And it adds some credibility because there's no misinterpretation of what that data is. Further, in these sections we're going to work on this week, you're going to find that tool very helpful, because what I don't want to see in these next assessments is all words. I want to see any visual support that makes sense for you to include. And I'll show you some other samples in our marketing plans, but I have one in particular that you may want to look in the marketing plan examples from students this last year. And one plan in particular just did a really wonderful job with visual insight that supported the message, and it made it more appealing to read, to be perfectly honest, and easier to understand and more comprehensible than all words. So if you want to take a look, it was the MSIA, Snow Sports Industry Association, the Michigan one, conducted by these students. And if you look at their plan, again, an extensive, well-detailed table of contents. You'll have to do this too by the end of the semester. So if you want to start this process now as you're building these elements of the plan, do so. And you'll see here all of the sections we're going to talk about this week, as an example, and then plus some of the stuff that you did last week. So all of these first sections for this team of 4, remember, not just a team of 1. You're doing it for 1, and that's and that is not expected to have this kind of detail. You to follow your assignment guidelines as suggested. Then the rest of this becomes the rest of the marketing plan. But if you look right away, and this is what we're going to talk about now, is you're going to be sharing this week and learning about the history of the organization, their mission, their vision, their organizational structure. And this student group just did a really nice job laying that out. And so again, you'll notice they use different kinds of things, samples of logos, bullet points versus all text. Then they'll show in this section, we're going to be talking about sample marketing techniques or tools that this organization is currently using. They're appropriately referencing using the APA referencing style. You'll note here as I point with the cursor. And then again, snipping in here, I call it snipping because that's the name of the tool that I'll show you, but easily sharing some visual storytelling that makes sense, again, appropriate to the message. Here they outline tables and appropriately use headers for those tables, lay out the data very effectively, easy to understand. The text explains the pieces they're wanting to understand. Look at this information alone. The age of skiers and snowboarders. How helpful is this? And this is from the Snow Sport Industries of America, but it shows very clearly, our guess could have been this, but look at the snowboard percentages and how they drop off quickly. You're all snowboarding more than you're alpine skiing, which you might have guessed, but here is concrete data that proves to us that, this wash occurs right here when people, turn from 30s to 40s, they become more alpine skiers again. And this is probably the reason I really want to be a snowboarder, because so few people my age venture into that. But what are my children doing? Absolutely. They're doing some snowboarding before they do alpine skiing. So again, great insight and information if I'm in the ski industry. But more importantly, the data is presented really effectively, and it makes it easy to understand and use, which is our big issue. These chapters that we're working on right now is finding valid, reliable, appropriate, helpful data, and then using the data to help guide our decision making. It's the whole concept of big data. In fact, there's an article written called Big Data in the hospitality industry that I reference and use, and I actually just wanted to read to you some of the sections from this article. Big data. And I'm going to just highlight a little more thought about this concept. And it says specifically, have you considered the cost of not knowing or not getting that information? Because the cost of increased exposure to risks, the cost of missed opportunities, and the cost of inefficient use of resources is going to be critical if you've ignored big data. Ignoring big data and the potential value of the deeper insights it can provide to your analytics can end up being much more costly than you think. So if you've been ignoring big data, it's time you take a look at it. Further, they go on, and I just want to highlight a couple other paragraphs. But it says almost everything that you and your guests do as suppliers or consumers generates some form of data that can be digitally captured, stored, and measured in one way or another. This digitally captured data contains a wealth of information, but more often than not, organizations are challenged as to how to extract value from the big data. Big data analytics can play a significant role in tackling this challenge. Using big data does not make improved performance a sure bet, but the odds are more favorable. Rather, it's the potential value of the intelligence gathered from big data, the decisions you make based on this intelligence. Because remember, data doesn't tell us what to do. You, humans, us, make the decision on what we're going to do with that. And the actions you take based on these decisions that will help drive high performance. Integrating big data into your analytics can help you shift your organization toward becoming the class leader within the niche of your industry. Further, our author adds, suffice it to say that big data is pure information. Consider it to be your raw ingredients out of which a lot of valuable products can be made. The raw ingredients by themselves cannot transform your business. Rather, using these ingredients in the right mix and proportions can be the differentiating factor. Much depends on the questions you want answers to and the challenges you face, as big data may mean different things to different organizations. The sources of big data, both internal and external, keep expanding by the day. Due to technological advancements, we are now able to capture data from previously untapped sources and analyze that data alongside our traditional transactional data. For instance, video feeds from hotel security have existed for quite a while. Applying new tracking software to these video feeds, we can now create a heat map or path analysis of traffic within the hotel. Extract various data points and metrics from it and analyze these metrics alongside revenue generated by various POS systems during the same time frame. Then there are newer sources of big data like social media, which did not exist a few years ago, but can now also be harvested and analyzed with data from our PMS systems. So I love this line, ignoring big data and the potential value of the deeper insights it can provide to your organization can end up being much more costly than you think. If we ignore the information that's laying at our fingertips, but we haven't taken the time to gather, we will fail. So these whole chapters related to market research and market strategy are designed to help you gather and find that kind of data, both internal in the organization, if appropriate for you to do so this semester, and if you have access to that, but certainly external data that's laying around, just like this study about skiers and snowboarders. So when you find the data in this sea of information that is presented to us via the internet alone, let alone internal to the organization. Your job is to gather it again and share that and present it in a format similar to what these students have done in this student marketing plan. So again, beautiful insight and information. How about this? Reasons for not participating in snow sports. Do you think that'd be helpful to the ski industry? I love this study. What do you think the answer is? Should I cover it up? But what do you think? Is it for health reasons? No, look at the number one reason right at the bottom here. Increased family commitments is the number one reason that people do not participate. I believe it's part of that overprogramming of youth. We are so scheduled and programmed that we don't have time to participate in these kinds of things. But you can see lots of things. Work commitments. How about no one to go with? The reason I don't ski, the number 2 cited reason, is there's no one to go with. What does that get you thinking about? Well, I'm thinking about, hey, what a great opportunity to get groups of people together to not do programs in terms of lessons. How about just, this is our social hour, and come to our resort because we have lots of people that also want to ski and participate and maybe don't have anybody to do it with. Come meet some new people. So we're going to do a whole session, or we're going to do partner up skiing by ability and interest. You're an advanced snowboarder or you're an advanced alpine skier. We're going to put you with a group of people or another person that likes to ski that way too, and you can meet new friends and have more fun. But this makes me really sad. I wouldn't have guessed that. I wouldn't have guessed the reason, except if you look at all of the recreation research, you'll find there are 5 reasons people don't participate in recreation, or the bulk of the reasons fall under 5 categories. One of the big ones is there's no one to go with. Hey, I'd love to go canoeing. I have nobody to do it with. Love to go hiking. I have nobody to do it with. There are certainly other barriers like cost, like equipment and supplies. But the number one barriers always fall in line with social related issues. Would love to do it, can't find the people. So that kind of insight, invaluable, because it might help us design programs and services related to removing the barriers of participation. And that's our goal in marketing. How do we get more meaningful opportunities for the people we want to serve, employees, stakeholders, consumers? So let's get down to tax. I've given you that base. I hope you see and feel the importance and need for this in what we're moving toward. But if you find data like this, I mean, look how beautiful this is presented, and they didn't re-establish it. What they did is use the snipping tool. So at the bottom left of your main screen, you always find the icon for tools that are available to you. And what will come up is it's called the snipping tool. So all you do is search under accessories on a PC again. You go under your command code for Microsoft, and then you type in accessories. Under accessories is the snipping tool here. And what you'll do is simply create a new snip. So let's say I want to take a snippet and I'm going to use something from this report in another report. I will click new. It makes everything foggy, and I'm going to use my cursor here and just click and drag over the area I want to snip. Now I've got that little section table snipped, and I'm going to do a right click, copy, and then I turn around obviously and paste that into any document that I want. So let me just randomly paste it into here. Click paste, there it is. Move it around, format picture, right? I can change styles, etc. related. I can do a text wrap, make that through, and then I can move this around this document where it'll stay in that regard. So the snipping tool, our greatest friend when we're writing documents and creating them, so we can add that visual support to tell the story, to help things make it more meaningful, to make it visual relief so people can quickly, I can look at that data in seconds and make some conclusions that will be very helpful to marketing this organization. And I'd argue again, marketing is related to operations very directly because these are decisions that are going to impact operations and how we do business. So, welcome to Chapter 6. To me, the completely forgotten aspect to organizations today, not affording themselves the opportunity to take a giant step backwards, gather quickly meaningful, relevant, reliable, and valid data and insight and information to give us a business intelligence that will help us be more successful in the future. So I am really excited. Can't wait to have you dive in. Take a look at Chapter 6. Again, look at our course shell, information here related to what we're going to be doing this week, the section with video, PowerPoint, assignments listed, and then an extra kind of little button here, if you notice under standardized market research. If you click on that, I just keep throwing in, honestly, all little pieces of data or information that to me is interesting and helpful, and it shows you the variety of sources to gather insight and information. Like here's information on the pizza franchise data. It talks about what pizza companies have bigger parts and what kind of franchises they have and what's going on in the pizza industry. And if you see, you talk about an oversaturated market is the pizza industry. Tons of supply, demand relatively flat or shrinking, and what's happening is you see a rebranding of Pizza Hut this last year, a rebranding of Domino's the year before, rebranding of Little Caesars several years ago, and now an interest and attempt to kind of rebrand again because it is so competitive. So to me, it's kind of a fascinating part of the food service industry is just pizza companies. So right here is a whole bunch of information just on that. So I have put together just a variety of tools just to show you again the depth of where information comes from and the sources, but we're looking for valid and reliable data, not just someone's opinion, keep in mind. So that's what that is in our strategy section this week. Chapter 6. You'll see the assignments and everything outlined as normal. You'll also see down here online citation guides for in-text and online by the American Psychological Association, which in this section you need to reference appropriately and always give credit where credit's due. So we're looking for outside data that other people have gathered this week versus you doing the assessments last week that you gathered the data. Now we're looking at other people's data. And as such, we have to always give credit where credit's due. No plagiarism here at all, and over reference versus under reference anytime, because most of the insight we gather in the strategy section is related to other people's thoughts, conclusions, ideas that we're using. So here are, if you're not familiar with APA guidelines, they are required this week. Here are some links to help you with that, and then finish up with a quiz. So in our Chapter 6, we've got lots of work to do, but it's going to be so insightful in terms of your marketing organization. You'll also need to conduct an interview with your organization this week because you need to understand information about the organization itself. That will be further explained in our chapter reading and PowerPoint this week, but please be ready to conduct an interview with them. And I should highlight as well in this section, and it explains again the interview and what kind of information you need to gather from the organization here. But it also has in this section what I call the sample organization questions. So again, you don't have to use these, but my hope is it provides you an idea of the type of questions in our perfect marketing world we would understand. And so, for example, here are questions about organization's background. Some of this we might get online, some of it we need to ask someone about, and some of it they may have to find other documents to help us learn. But we want to understand about how they currently operate in their current communications, and this is our first assignment. You already did something on competition, but in my perfect marketing world, I would understand all this information about my organization to more effectively help develop a marketing plan for them. Know that some of these questions, you'll see this is multiple pages. It's taken me actually a long time to develop this. What kind of questions would I want to have answered? This is a document, it's actually 12 pages. You don't need to ask all these questions this week. really, we're all really focusing on the organizational background and information about how they operate currently and what's happened in the past. So those are this week's important questions. But if you're planning on only having a couple meetings with your site, you want to ask more of these questions because you're going to be using them in future weeks. If you're already internal to the organization and have access to these questions throughout the next several weeks, then you just need to ask the questions that relate to this week because you'll have access to them to do otherwise. So if that at all is confusing, or if you have questions, just please know this is a guide. You don't have to use all of these questions, but sometimes I find we don't know how to ask the question of the agency to learn. So here is the outcome of this week. Right? You'll have a global market industry assessment to do from secondary sources, but you'll have this interview you need to conduct with the organization and complete this organizational assessment. So this is to support that in particular. Again, just to help you. Don't turn it in. I don't need to see the answers. It's just to give you a guide and help you orchestrate your interview. So that's that. So enjoy your week. Looking forward to you get some feedback from me this week about past week's assignments, and have a great day and week.